Welcome to Feature Spotlight. This is the new series here at Firefly Studios on YouTube, where we run you through the unique mechanics, systems, and, you guessed it, features coming to Stronghold Warlords, our new historical castle sim. Today I'm excited to reveal one of our biggest features coming to our first East Asian Stronghold game, that being Gunpowder. With fire and of course pitch being classic Stronghold features, this has been our design wish list for some time now. Warlords is going all in on gunpowder, with everything from fire arrows and early rocket launchers through to timed gunpowder trails, suicidal fire oxin, knockback mechanics, and much more. And don't worry, with the exception of a little Stronghold fun and humour, we're talking about stuff that's inspired by or taken directly from historical fact, which means no weird fantasy gunpowder like the stuff used in Lord of the Rings to blow up Helm's Deep. While it can't be proven exactly who first discovered gunpowder, the popular theory we're adhering to is that it was a Chinese discovery. Archaeological and historical evidence from China predates other nations by centuries, particularly with Taoist and other less well-preserved texts. For example, the Book of the Kinship of Three from the 2nd century AD describes a mixture of 3 different powders that would fly and dance, making gunpowder a likely candidate. Similar texts also suggest that the discovery of gunpowder was actually an unintended consequence by Chinese alchemists searching for things like eternal life for their emperor and the transmutation of materials. As is often the case, it's unlikely that these early day scientists intended to create weapons of war, but ultimately that's where their quest led them. After about 300 years, a combination of honey, saltpeter, sulfur, and other materials led to the creation of gunpowder as we know it. As the formula for gunpowder became increasingly potent, explosive, and therefore interesting for military leaders on all sides, there were reports of hands, faces, and entire houses being burnt down during these experiments. As a result, the Chinese word for gunpowder, which I can't pronounce but will appear on screen right now, literally means fire medicine, as a reminder of its medicinal origins. In Stronghold, each structure has a key resource behind it. Stone is largely used for castle defences, wood for industry buildings, iron for weapons, and in Stronghold Warlords, we now have saltpeter. Known to the Chinese since the 1st century AD, saltpeter is a key ingredient in the creation of gunpowder, and one you'll be using to blow enemies away in-game. Saltpeter is gathered by your peasants courtesy of the saltpeter mine, a brand new industry structure which can be built on any terrain showing the resource, just as you build on land rich in iron or stone in classic Stronghold games. Once extracted from terrain rich in saltpeter deposits, the saltpeter is then taken over to our new gunpowder workshop. Here your peasant worker has all the essential ingredients he needs to refine the extracted materials and produce gunpowder, including, and this is historically accurate, urine. That's right, we're pleased to announce that in Stronghold Warlords, urine is a key ingredient at the gunpowder workshop. Here your saltpeter crystals are mixed with other ingredients such as sulfur and charcoal in the grinder, eventually producing the famous black powder stored in large, quite volatile barrels. Finally, your hard-earned gunpowder is, carefully, delivered to the stockpile, where it is stored for use in creating all manner of fiery units, defences and siege weapons. For balancing reasons, we haven't decided yet whether the stockpile will explode when it's attacked or set on fire, considering now that it's likely to be full of gunpowder, but it would be pretty funny for the attacking player. When it comes to castle defences, there's a few options already in our alpha build, including the Gunpowder Stash and Rocket Arrow Tower, which is based on the Huacha multiple arrow launcher. The Gunpowder Stash is designed as a cheap, effective means of breaking the flow of enemy attacks. When confronted with large numbers of enemy troops, hidden gunpowder stashes can be placed within your castle estate for a small amount of gunpowder. These stashes are extremely volatile and will explode when disturbed by enemy troops, or if your archers decide to set them off early. While the gunpowder stash deals damage, its main benefit is in blasting troops in all directions and leaving behind a patch of burning terrain in its wake. In this way you can both knock back attacking forces and block their path, while you regroup and refocus. The Huacha Rocket Tower is a far more expensive and considerably less fragile option. Inspired by the fire arrow carts of China and Korea, the Rocket Tower costs a large amount of both gold and wood to purchase, and can be placed anywhere along your castle walls. Once built, the Rocket Tower will fire a spread of 10 large gunpowder-fueled siege arrows at attacking forces. Operated by an engineer in the final game, the Rocket Tower is a costly but effective means of dealing with attacking siege engines and groups of more heavily armoured troops. The Huacha will also appear in the final game as a portable arrow launcher unit, something a little more faithful to history, which we'll be showing off in future videos. When it comes to units, we've taken inspiration from one battle in particular, the Siege of Dian. Fought as part of the Jin Song Wars in China in 1132, it is the first recorded use of two exciting new weapons, the Fire Lance and Fire Oxen. When we talk about historical accuracy versus inspiration, the Fire Lancer is a unit lifted directly from historical accounts. Wielding a spear tipped with a bamboo flute filled with gunpowder, this lance would eject a stream of flames once ignited, as a sort of proto-flamethrower. In Stronghold Warlords, we've opted to include the earlier, more incendiary version of the Fire Lance, meaning you won't get a knockback, but you will burn enemies to a crisp. Most useful as a defensive unit, the Fire Lancer is perfect for burning pesky laddermen and any troops foolish enough to climb a ladder with one of these units waiting for them at the top. The mighty Fire Oxen is more a case of history as inspiration. Toward the end of the Siege of Dian, the city's prefect launched a counterattack on the weakened rebel forces by releasing a drove of oxen, enraged by having their tails set on fire. This was a key turning point in the battle and one we pay homage to with this new unit. One key change we've made, however, is to strap several pots of gunpowder to either side of the oxen, giving it a highly damaging explosive impact, assuming it isn't destroyed en route to the enemy. So if you see one of these things coming, direct as much fire as possible toward it. Not unlike that one pesky Urukai that they couldn't quite take down in the Two Towers. Way to go, Legolas. So there you have it, a few ways in which Gunpowder is going to shake up the Stronghold series, both in terms of the economy and siege gameplay. For us, it's hugely exciting, both in terms of the history behind the substance and its potential for impact on RTS gameplay. Gunpowder completely changed how wars were waged, ushering in the final days of siege warfare and castles as we know them. It played a huge role in the Mongol expansion and Chinese conflicts, eventually making its way to Europe and Japan. It was truly the end of an era. Rest assured, we have much more planned for the game in terms of Gunpowder. There are additional weapons, castle defences and traps planned, so stay tuned as we move from alpha, beta and eventually through to release. Now, if you like the idea of blowing apart castle walls with Gunpowder, make sure you wishlist Stronghold Warlords on Steam because it makes a huge difference to us. And of course, you can also join us on the official Stronghold Discord to chat to us directly. The link to that can be found in the description below. Gunpowder.